Welcome to WCrypto.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back to WCrypto. Today we are talking about the United States debt problem, the refinancing crisis, and a bold new idea: Bitcoin-backed bonds. The United States government has accumulated a massive amount of debt. The total public debt stands at $36.5 trillion and is increasing every day. But the real issue is not just the amount. $7 trillion of that debt needs to be refinanced in 2025. This means new bonds must be issued to pay off old ones. At the same time, the government is running a $2 trillion deficit, adding even more debt to the system. That means in 2025, the market will have to absorb $9 trillion in U.S. government bonds. The question is, who is going to buy them? In the past, foreign governments were major buyers of U.S. debt. China, in particular, used to hold a significant portion of U.S. treasuries. But since 2014, China has been steadily reducing its holdings. The Federal Reserve could step in and buy bonds, but that would require printing more money, worsening inflation. Domestic banks and pension funds are required to hold some government debt, but their capacity is limited. So the U.S. government needs a new strategy. Some are now proposing a radical solution: Bitcoin-backed bonds, or BitBonds. Here is how it would work. The U.S. government issues $1 trillion in 10-year bonds. Instead of paying the current market rate of 4.3% interest, these bonds would pay just 1%. To make them attractive to investors, 10% of the bond proceeds, $100 billion, would be used to buy Bitcoin. Investors holding these bonds would receive all the upside from Bitcoin price appreciation, up to the point where their total yield reaches 4.5%. Beyond that, any additional gains from Bitcoin would be split evenly between bondholders and the U.S. government. This would allow the U.S. to reduce its borrowing costs by 75%. Instead of paying 4.3% interest, they would pay only 1%. This would save the government hundreds of billions of dollars in interest payments. At the same time, it would create a massive buy-side demand for Bitcoin. $100 billion in Bitcoin purchases would be equal to roughly 6% of the current Bitcoin market capitalization. That kind of buying pressure could have a major impact on the price of Bitcoin. This raises an important question. Can investors trust the U.S. government? History suggests otherwise. The U.S. government has defaulted on its debt twice when it was backed by a real asset. In 1933, President Franklin Roosevelt refused to pay bondholders in gold, instead forcing them to accept paper money at a devalued rate. In 1971, President Richard Nixon ended the gold standard completely, cutting the link between U.S. debt and gold. If the government has changed the rules before, what is stopping them from doing it again? There are several ways the government could manipulate this system. They could confiscate the Bitcoin reserves, just as they did with gold in 1933. They could change the terms of the bond agreement halfway through. They could impose new taxes or regulations that make it difficult for investors to benefit from the Bitcoin appreciation. The main risk for bondholders is that they are relying on the government to uphold its promise. History suggests that trusting the government with hard assets is a dangerous bet. For Bitcoin, however, this proposal could be a game changer. It would signal the U.S. government's official recognition of Bitcoin as a legitimate financial asset. It would create massive institutional demand, as the bond market is one of the largest financial markets in the world. Bitcoin would become part of the global sovereign debt system, further cementing its role as digital gold. If this happens, Bitcoin's price could see major upward pressure. Right now, this is just a concept, but the fact that it is being seriously discussed means that something like this could happen in the future. The U.S. government is running out of financing options. It cannot rely on China. It cannot keep printing money without consequences. It needs new solutions. If Bitcoin-backed bonds are not implemented now, something similar may emerge in the future. Would you trust the U.S. government to manage Bitcoin reserves? Would you buy a bond that is partially backed by Bitcoin? Or is this just another attempt to lure investors into U.S. debt? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you found this analysis useful, subscribe for more insights on Bitcoin, macroeconomics, and financial markets. And see you in the next one.